Yeah, let's start the talk by Rachel. As I said before, she has come here this week as invited researcher for the Japan-India joint project, JSPS and ICSSR, the joint project. So, and there are two series of two talk series. Today is first one, and tomorrow the same time is the second one. The tomorrow is the Rachel's career self-introduction about career or past achievement and contents of her current works in education and research work. And tomorrow we should discuss about, we should introduce the joint research project, contents of the joint research project. That is two series, two talk series. And I do not will introduce herself, but only that she has come from the IIT Jodhpur, and that she will make some detailed introduction about herself. So therefore, it's okay to start, Rachel?
Yes, thank you
Yes,
very much, Professor Matsumaru.
yes.
Very good evening to all my colleagues, students, friends at Waseda University. I and Mr. Dhruv Gupta, who's also attending and who's traveled with me, we are very happy to be here. We have enjoyed so much of hospitality here. We thank you very much for your kindness.
Okay.
And I will now share my screen.
Okay, please start your talk.
Yes. Yes. Please let me know if you can see my screen, if it is visible.
It is okay. Please.
Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to talk about broadly my research, which falls in the area of the relationship between social inequalities and education. Okay, so as a scholar, these are the areas that I work on. The sociology of education, the history of ideas, sociology of knowledge, social stratification, political sociology, science, technology, and society studies. And this evening, I want to tell you how I came to work in some of these areas. So there are 4 parts to my presentation. I'll just briefly introduce myself. I'm from a small state in the very south of India. It is a state called Kerala. I'm from a town called Kottayam there. And my parents moved to United Arab Emirates when I was 1 year old, and I was there. I did all my schooling there. And from there, I moved to New Delhi, where I did my bachelor's in English literature from the University of Delhi. And I also did my master's from the same university. But I shifted from English literature to sociology primarily because I was increasingly wanted to understand the society in which I lived in. As a researcher in the social sciences, it's different from being a technology researcher or an engineer or a scientist because you are very much connected to the objects that you study. And knowing your social location and your origins is very important because very often, if you are not reflective enough, you may end up biasing the kind of your research itself, right? So anyway, so I shifted to sociology. And then I moved to another city in the west of India. It's a city called Pune. And I had a job with a corporate social responsibility foundation of a bank, one of India's largest private banks called ICICI Bank. I did forget to mention one thing. During my undergraduate period, I had a connection with Japan. All 3 years, I was funded by the Sumitomo Corporation scholarship for academic excellence. Anyway, it is nice to come back to this country, which has also played a role in my education. And when I was in ICICI Foundation, the work that I had to do was really assess, fund and manage innovative educational programs for state-funded schools and for teacher education programs in the northern regions of India. Now, if you look at these images, these were taken from some of my travels as part of my work in 2010. These are some state-funded government schools. And as you can see, the condition of these schools is extremely, extremely poor. And a main reason for this is that education is not a very high priority subject for the Indian government. Not just that, state-funded schools tend to be some of the most impoverished schools of all. Children of parents, any parent who can afford to send their children to a private school would tend to send them there, right? So this then was, it was a big culture shock for me. I had never seen the kinds of conditions in which children from the most marginalized and poor sections of several Indian states they were studying. I had to travel extensively in the northern parts of India. These were some scenes from Rajasthan in 2010. And because of this, so obviously, it's important to say that not all schools in India look like the pictures that I just showed, but the tremendous social inequality that produces such differences became, to me, a very important area of study. And therefore, I then did my PhD again in Delhi. And in Delhi, and now I will move on to talk about my research. So my research falls in this area called social stratification. Now, the word stratify, as you all would know, it is a word from geology. Now, in geology, stratum is a layer of rock which is characterized by certain lithographic properties or attributes that distinguish it from adjacent layers, which is separated by visible layers. So when you talk about stratification, you're talking about layers. So when you talk about social stratification, we are talking about how we value different resources and attributes, and these lead to different dimensions of inequality, all of which tend to stratify our social relations. And so social stratification refers to the relative social positions of individuals within a social group, category, geographic region, or any social unit. So from my PhD onwards, this is an area that I began to work on. And the title of my PhD thesis was The Talented Student. Now, all of us understand what we mean by the idea of talent, right? I say talent, and all of us have some image of an exceptional student in our mind. But I wanted to look at, so in the context of my study, which has also now been published as a book by Taylor and Francis. So I looked at the history and sociology of this idea in education, that of talent. And the way I looked at it was by exploring the 50-year history of India's oldest talent search examination for school students. And so I'll talk a little bit about how I did this study. So one of the most interesting aspects of trying to reconstruct what this idea of talent meant in Indian society was to understand the history of this exam. Only when I decided to study the exam, I found that the government had not been keeping good records of how this exam was conducted from 1963 onwards. And therefore, a big part of my own research was to construct an archive of texts, which would be the resource material or which would be my data for analysis. So I looked at, these are a couple of methods that we use in the social sciences. I looked at institutional literature produced by this organization which conducts the National Talent Search Exam, that's the NTSE, right? And I looked at, I did content analysis of that. The second part of the study looked at the evolution of India's own education policy. And then again, there were several landmark policy documents, which I did content analysis of. The third aspect was descriptive statistical analysis of the distribution of winners at the state level, at the district level, the number of people who participated in it. And much of this information was not available. So I had to file special kinds of government applications called under the Right to Information Act. And I did it in 19 states and 6 union territories, or these are small areas which are governed directly under the jurisdiction of the Indian government. And I also did a content analysis of interviews with 19 scholars who won the who were winners of this examination. One of them also was the Nobel laureate Venkatraman Ramakrishnan. He won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 2009. So okay, I'll just move on. Yeah. So what my study really did was it tried to map the interconnections between various ideas of talent, which were generated across different sources, but which were united in the implementation of this education policy and intervention. So what I had to connect was historical ideas of who is a talented student. So in Hindu philosophy, for example, there are strong ideas like pratibha, which were influencing cultural notions of what it means to be talented. At the same time, during the period of British colonialization, when the British introduced new forms of examination, so examination success became a way of understanding who is a talented student. Then I had to look at talent and as it is reflected in Indian education policies. But how the idea of talent actually becomes operationalized is tied to the history of the institution which was conducting this examination. And I also had to put together the history of this examination itself, the demographic profiles of winners and individual histories. And together, I was looking at what we call a articulation or a connection between two sets of ideas, the ideas of the talented student and also the government. So in this particular program, the Indian government would fund young talented students who were selected through a special examination. They would be selected at the end of their class 12, and they would be supported till their PhD with a very attractive scholarship package. And yes, and the idea was that these students who were supported by the government would then become scientists who would contribute to building India as a modern, progressive nation, which was very advanced in the sciences and in technology. So basically, the idea then was to explore whether this was the idea with which the government began this program. Was it successful? And how are all these interconnections affecting the progress of this exam? So what I looked at was the relationship between the discursive construction of a category like talent and the direct impact on the construction of the program and its implementation. So in the design of the program, the student was constructed as somebody who was very passive. This led to a lot of mismatch between individual aspirations and policy outcomes. There was a certain idea of how in higher education you could nurture talented students and how you could make them achieve their full potential. But the problem was that policymakers used to make these policies separated from the actual school and university context. And that mismatch again was a source of ineffectiveness. And so much of the policy was about how this particular program would contribute to nation building. And so that the study also investigated whether that was like a wrong way or a very limited way of assessing the impact of that program. And I can talk a little bit about this more if there are questions, but yeah, I'd move on. Then I've also explored this idea of the relationship between inequality, social stratification, and inequality in education. So I am very interested in understanding the work of education and philosophers. So I've done some work on the legacy of this French philosopher Rousseau and Indian thinker Ambedkar, who was a key architect of the Indian Constitution, and Mahatma Gandhi, who was very critical to India's freedom movement. So then there's a couple of work that I've done in that direction. So after my PhD, I also started moving in a new direction, which was the sociology of English language learning. I moved to this city in Russia called Innopolis. And there I had an opportunity to do a different kind of study. So for 2 years, I was part of this action research project. It was called Story Time. And basically, I think I can give you a little bit. Yeah. So it was a book club for 4 to 6 year old children. It was a post-school extracurricular activity. So I was one of the people who designed this. And I was also so basically this is how the structure of the program. So you had a 1 hour program in which I would read a story from a curated list of English story books. And there were pre and post reading activities. And I was the main pedagogue and storyteller, but I would be assisted by a teaching assistant. Typically, it would be a mother of one of the children who were attending. So I was the only person who knew English, and then the children are all Russian speakers, and for them English is a foreign language, and the mother would translate whatever I said into the Russian language. And so between July 2020 and 2021, we had 112 sessions. We worked with more than 100 books, and 45 learners were affected by this program. And in this study, what I was looking at was the relationship between the child's interest in a particular learning situation and the aspirations of their parents. So very often, I don't know if it is the situation in Japan, but when you say, my child is interested in learning English, that idea of interest, very often you think it is something internal which comes from the child, but it might not be so simple, because very often child's decisions are influenced by the aspirations of their parents. And in fact, therefore, this program was an opportunity to understand the aspirations of Russian parents, Russian middle-class parents, and therefore their participation in the study helped me explore the idea of interest from a sociological perspective. After this, from Innopolis, I moved to my current institute, which is the Indian Institute of Technology at Jodhpur in Rajasthan. So as you can see, it's in the northwest of India. And currently, this is some work that I'm doing, which is I'm looking at the relationship between education technology, access, and distance education. So I am looking at India's National Institute for Open Schooling. So this is the world's largest open schooling system with 4.13 million students. And so in open schooling, so it's like online education, but the situation is tremendously complicated by severe digital social inequalities which exist in the Indian context. So this is also one of the first studies which is moving in this direction, but it's at a very rudimentary stage, as we've just had one paper so far on this. And the other work in the similar direction is I'm looking at India's program for technology-enabled learning. This is called the NPTEL. So right about the time when MIT launched the open course movement, and at around that time, it was the early 2000s. So a team from the Indian Institutes of Technology, along with the Indian Institutes of Management, visited Carnegie Mellon University. And this combine, and the idea was that lectures which were being conducted in these IITs could be hosted in this online repository and made accessible to all interested undergraduate students. So this was the beginning of the program in 2000 and 2002, I think. And in 2014, the program transitioned and became a MOOCs. When it became a MOOCs, when it became a massive online open course, currently there are more than 25 million learners who are enrolled, and students also now are able to take examinations based on the courses that they enroll for. 5,372 MOOCs have been completed as of 8. And a key feature of this program is that it works with local colleges, which are called local chapters. And some of the work which I've been doing is whether these local chapters are useful in overcoming not overcoming, but at least addressing digital social inequalities and enabling students who are in engineering and technical institutions which are not which are not of very high quality to access these and make sense of the course content and material which is on NPTEL platform. And so in terms of teaching, so for a while I taught at the University of Delhi. Currently at IIT Jodhpur, I'm teaching an undergraduate course on social stratification. There's a master's course, which is part of our master's in computational social sciences. It's called Understanding Social Realities. I take that. The third course, Ethics and Professional Life. This is a compulsory institute-wide course for all master's and PhD students. The fourth course is also for master's students. It's called Introduction to Policy Analysis. The last two courses are mainly for PhD students. It's called one is Sociology of Science and Technology. And from next semester, I'll be starting to teach Sociology of Education. And finally, I want to end by talking about two projects which I'm currently involved in. This project is, so on the left, you can see the map of India. This is the state, Rajasthan. Rajasthan has these many districts. So we are from Jodhpur. This is our neighboring district, Nagaur. And there we're working with a select set of government schools to set up STEM laboratories there. So it's a scientific social responsibility project. And tomorrow I'll talk about exploring smart pedagogy through the end-to-end development of a technology-enhanced learning system. And that's the project for which I and Dhruv are currently visiting Waseda. So thank you for your kind attention. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you this evening.
Hi. Thank you, Rachel. Good talking about your working and the history of studying and researching. It's okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. From the audience, do you have some questions? If you have, please raise your hand, or only talking is good enough because a limited number of participants is here. Hi, do you have some question? Something?
Okay, so thank you for your talk. My name is Kamata, the IPS professor. Thank you very much. So I have a question about the very simple one. So you focus on the social stratification. So at that time, so the quite interesting topic, the talented student. So, yes. But so it's a very difficult to define maybe the talented. I understand. So many people working on the topic, in this case, so it's quite hard to say. So, but so talented is a kind of specific interest in this kind of topic, and the motivate the student something, the new thing, I guess, to make the something, the direction. So, sorry, not so clear for me, but also the talented student is the, of course, quite hard to define, but so how uh, to relate it to the education. So, uh, of course, so this is the a kind of nature of the student, but education is quite hard to make the a kind of the schedule or the contents. So your project is still going on this topic.
So thank you very much,
Yeah.
Professor, for your question.
Yes.
So as I understand, so in psychology, there are several tests which are there, which can help you identify a gifted student or a talented student. And again, there are lots of controversies as to which is the correct definition. And exactly like you said, we think that talent is something inside, but which will make a student do innovative, extraordinary work. And but we all agree that it is when we see the output of a student that we are able to say that this person is talented. But the question I was exploring is from a sociological perspective. So one of the main findings of my study, for example, is that most of the winners tend to be boys, and they tend to be boys from upper classes and from upper castes, and they are situated only in urban pockets. In fact, I can show you some of yes, okay. So if you look at so you will find that okay, not all of this here. I think if you can just this is for another presentation, so it's but you can see that there is so for example, so you clearly know that there is some problem if a test is only identifying upper middle class, upper caste boys, because they cannot only be the talented students in a society, right? And therefore the question that I was asking is that why is it so? Why do children from families which are already prestigious or from social backgrounds which are already from certain social backgrounds, why are only those children succeeding? So to answer that particular question required me to look at the idea of talent in a very different way. And therefore, so this is a completed project, and it was part of my PhD. Now, the whole study has been published as a book, and therefore, in the study, what I was looking at was this relationship between talent and nation building. So actually, when I studied the program, it became obvious that the program is really not about the identification of talent. The government is saying it is about the identification of talent, but actually some other things are happening through the program. So I mean, so a couple of those were.
I see. Thank you
I
very
don't know
much.
if that answered your question.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes. From this Q&A, I think yes, Rachel, do you think what do you think about the talented? Talented is a very, very highly potential or highly ability presently. It means what is the meaning of talented? Do you think?
So, sir, for me, it is, we have to look at talent both from the internal potential of a child.
Yes.
And in that sense, I think that all individuals have an inner potential, but whether they are able to fulfill that potential or not depends upon the social circumstances that that those individuals are located in. And therefore, excellence is we can recognize excellence, and those individuals who are able to be excellent are also excellent not only because of all their internal qualities. Part of their excellence also comes from the institutions, family, and other social aspects also, which are making them excellent in a certain sense. So for me, understanding the relationship between internal qualities and the external social dimension is how I would look at the idea of talent.
Yeah. Yes. You said two different aspects. One is the potential, and the
Yes.
other one is the excellent ability.
Excellent.
So excellent. So the potential means maybe the hidden ability, and the excellent is the present
Outward.
ability.
Yes.
Already appeared ability.
Yes.
So therefore that is a little bit different, I think. The talent, hidden ability and the appeared ability is a little bit different.
Yes. So I was looking at precisely this, but between the hidden ability and the appeared ability, there is a gap.
Yes.
There is a big gap.
Mm-hmm.
For this hidden, so the education system from kindergarten right up to higher education is supposed to make this gap narrow in a certain sense.
Okay.
And therefore, in my study, like I said, I looked at education policies. So how, for the Indian government, for example, in India's education policies, identification of talent is mentioned very, very few times. It is 0.01% of the total quantity of words associated in the policy. So it's such a marginal discourse, because in the Indian context, where there is already so much of inequality, to say that some students are more excellent or have a certain hidden ability, and their ability should be promoted and supported more, that's a very small element in the context of Indian education. The larger conversation in Indian education policy is making sure that at least basic education is available to all children. We are a very large country. So in that context, this gap between hidden ability and manifest ability, in the Indian context, that is not a big concern. And for me, as a researcher, I was looking at Indian society's perspective, Indian society's views on this process of identifying talent. So it's not that I have one perspective and I was trying to sort of justify it.
Okay. Thank you. And so therefore it raises the second question. So the talent is the natural born, having born, the ability, or the educated ability, or extends their ability or not. Both two cases is there. So therefore, how do you think about these two different ability, the natural ability and also the learned, educated ability? How do you think about it?
I think both are there, but the complex question as educators is that the preparation of teachers is critical in this. Today, Professor Matsumaru and Heishin and Dhruv and I had a chance to go to school in Hibikino. And in that school, we had a conversation about children who have disabilities. And one of the things that the teacher said is that many students are there with disabilities in the classroom, but it's difficult to recognize them. It's difficult for the teachers. And they say, and when they were having that conversation, they said, we are not professionals. But so teacher is, but the child is coming to the school, and actually teacher education should be strong enough that you can identify ability and you can identify disability. And the teacher preparation should be in such a way that teachers are able to also help students along with parents in moving. Like, teachers should be able to make a path for students to progress. And supposing a student is having, so for example, in countries like Israel, in countries like Russia, in many parts of United States, you have several programs, but these are all special programs for gifted students.
Yeah.
And but I'm talking about like ordinary students who don't have like a label, but who if teachers are able to identify, can push in some pathway, which can lead to that student's inner ability coming out. I mean, that is tied to teacher preparation. And this is, at least in the Indian context, this is not a very, this is a very weak area of teacher education, especially in schools and at the early childhood level. And I don't know how it is in Japan, but in the Indian context, to teach in higher education, we don't need to take any courses in pedagogy. It is assumed that if you are a good researcher, you are also a good teacher, but it may not be again.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Yes. Based on this or the different question is okay. Please give some the comments and the questions from the other students. Yes, other people.
先生、ちょっと、ボイスがですね、
はい。
なんかちょっと、
ハウリング
ハウリングを起こしてるような感じです。すいません、ちょっと、
私の声もダメですか？
今、私の声は聞こえますクリアに。
クリア、yes。
松原先生のだけですね、そしたら多分。マイクが。
すみません、マイクが悪かったのかも。yes。
なんか、ちょっと、すいません、ちょっと。
はい。マイク変えるのかな？スピーカーと同じ。スピーカー。はい。ちょっとマイク変えてみたけど、どうですかね。
今大丈夫です。
大丈夫ですか？これはい
いです。はいはい。
すみません、なんか、
そうです。いえいえ。
Yes, thank you. From the other student or the audience, do you have some question or comments about? じゃあ、アフナン、can you hear? アフナン。
Yes, Professor, I hear you.
Yes, please show some your comments or questions based on the Rachel's talk or this Q&A. Please say something. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Rachel, for this talking. I'm thinking about the age, student age. Does the age impact on the things you have searched about? I mean, for the talented students?
Yes, age was a very, so in the history of the exam, age was a very important criterion. When in this particular exam, at the end of, for I think about from 1963 till 2000, it was the end of the educational, end of class 12. Then they had an experiment for about 5 years when they try to identify students in grade 8. And grade 8 in the Indian context is quite important because very often, especially in rural India, a lot of children, especially girls, drop out of school because of poverty. And they decide not to continue studying further. So just imagine some really talented students who are girls who are not able to study further because they've dropped out of the system. So for a period, it was at class 8. But the problem, one of the problems in this exam was that it spent so much of energy on identifying students, how you nurture such students, how you can help them flourish and how you can help them thrive. That was not an aspect on which there was a lot of thinking, at least from an institutional point of view. So only for a little time, it was for class 8 or 13-year-old children. And
Yes.
after that, it again has gone back. Now it is at class 10. And then it went to class 10, which is 15-year-olds. And I think now it is again back to class 12, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, thank you very much. Do you think that the younger children, I mean from 4 to 10, can be found faster than the other younger talented students? What do you
So
think
I
about
think
this?
so in this particular program, the kind of examination that was being conducted was to find students who had an aptitude for STEM subjects. So science, technology, engineering,
Yes.
mathematics, right? Now, conventionally also, when you think about the talented child or the brainy child or the smart
Yes.
child, it is the person who can do these kinds of things. But what about the child who has artistic ability or linguistic ability or different kinds of very
Intelligence.
extraordinary kinds of emotional intelligences? None of these aspects come under the idea of talent. And this is also, or kinesthetic abilities, like, and one of the most, like you said, Afnan, young children have so much of potential, but young children are also not free. They are so dependent on the aspirations of their parents.
Yes.
So talented children, if you don't, very often, and it's not just aspirations of parents, but the role of the mother, it has been established through several studies. The role of the motivation of the mother is very often an integral feature in the success of very young children. So these are also aspects that need to be factored in when you say that young children's talent, when we are talking about that. That is my opinion.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. The other question, another question from students?
I have one question.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, Hisin, please.
Okay. I want to ask one thing about the talent is because in my opinion, there may have two kinds of talent. First is about mind, means knowledge, but there also have some physical talent, like body's talent. Because
Yes.
some people will very good at some sports.
Yes.
So I think this two kind of different systems. So how to deal with this?
So you are absolutely correct. So this study was only looking at scholastic or school-based talent, because I was working with this particular examination. But this particular organization which conducts this exam also conducts talent search for artistic excellence.
Yes.
There is also like a talent for sports, extraordinary sports performance, all of that. But the kind of, in the Indian context, the kind of prestige and value that is there for saying, I am a national talent scholar, that is of a different kind of nature. And what is common between sports talent and art talent and this kind of talent, I am a Nobel Prize winner and I have talent like that, is that it becomes tied to which country you are from. So the talented person is not just a talented person, but you become something more, like the at least, I don't know, in the Indian context, that is an interesting social phenomenon. Whereby the talent, like, so we see that in the Olympics, for instance, right? So,
Yes.
or you see it even in science and technology, where there is also international competition between scientists working in different countries, and we're all solving problems. So there is a question of talent, but it's becoming tied with the idea of the nation. That connection that connection is interesting for science and technology. It's for art, it's for sports. That's one common point. But obviously the way that you look at it, the way you identify it, that is different.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you for this question and answers. And how about other students? For example, the Pen Fen. Can you hear Pen Fen? Can you hear? あれ ?Not? ダメだな。Yes.
Yes, I can.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Like, can you show us your comments or question or something?
My question is that is there any like potential solution to this problem? Like maybe simple solution or like a long-term, short-term. Sorry.
No, I think that's a really good question, but I don't have an answer for that question.
Or do you have any comment to this like aspect?
Yes, I can say that. So like I said, I put the study on talent in the context of this in the context of the whole question of social stratification, right? So that is the point which is of interest for us. That today that how inequalities between individuals are created. In Inequalities between individuals are fine. You are excellent in science and technology, so you are here at Waseda. You see, but I may not have an ability for my interest, maybe in say music or something like that. We are different. That difference is absolutely fine. We are all unique people, and the problem is when societies give value to certain kinds of things and not to others, right? So the problem is if it, and it is absolutely fine to give value to excellence in a scientific kind of excellence, but if you are noticing a pattern in which that only boys, for instance, are the excellent people in science and technology in a particular country, then there is a problem. So one of the things, so for example, from 1963 to 2013, when I looked at the data of the National Talent Search, I think 83% or something of winners are boys. Now, it cannot be that that is an accurate social representation of the distribution of talent, that only boys can be talented, right? So the importance of studies like mine perhaps is not all the solutions need to come from social scientists, but it's also asking us. So I really enjoyed a comment which Professor Matsumaru made in bioengineering lecture in the morning. So he showed us a simulation of the heart, and Professor, I don't know if I understood it correctly, but after talking about the way that the heart is modeled by that simulation, Professor mentioned that you should always be careful what model you are using. You should understand, and before you make any engineering solution, you should go back to, you should think about the model that you're using. So I will make a similar comment. When we think about social inequalities, also we have to think about the model that we are using. So if the pattern that we are seeing is very skewed like this, it is a time to rethink some of our models. So if this, like so in my case, like in the examination, if it is only selecting certain kinds of students, then it is time to rethink whether the design of the examination is correct, whether the design of some of our policies are correct. So that would be a way like towards a solution, or that would be at least my contribution as a researcher, I feel.
Yeah, I understand, and like great comment. Like I really like your answer.
Yeah, your question also was good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. ちょっと other children also are considering about the questions. How about Mengyun Q? Penguin Q. can you hear? Chan-san. Chan-san, can you hear me? No response. Chan-san, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello,
Hello,
hello.
Professor?
Yes, yes. Please say
Okay.
something you are thinking,
Okay.
comments. Can you do that?
Yes, comment.
Yes, yes, comments.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Professor. And I had small questions about. I'm not really familiar with this topic, so I wonder how to calculate the whether a group of people is talent. For example, you mentioned about that the boys are all how to say, we
The
prefer.
boys are being selected. The boys,
Yes.
yes.
Yes, I want to say that. And maybe for some areas and for some age, how to say?
Yes, yes, I understand what you're saying. Like in, just go on. What do you mean by age?
Yes, sorry, because for example, we always think that girls cannot do good in mathematics.
Yes.
So maybe I want to say, how can we how to say, objectively to calculate the talent of the girls and the boys for now?
So your name is Menyin Kwi, correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but a lot of studies have already shown that there is no intrinsic difference, or like in terms of ability, like there are lots of studies like in psychology or psychometry, which have tried to sort of done so okay, the way to objectively calculate, to measure somebody's intelligence depends on the tool that you are choosing. The tool will be usually it will be a standardized test, right? So if you look at the history of the intelligence test, intelligence quotient test, IQ test, which was developed by Alfred Binet and Theodore Simon in France at the turn of the 20th century. So this question of objectively estimating somebody's internal ability before it has come out depends on the tool that you are using. Now, in my own study of the National Talent Search Examination, I looked at not the tool, but what all the planners and the policymakers were believing about the tool. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. So one, I give you a test and I tell you that if you answer this test, it will be like an X-ray. I will be able to see what is inside of you, right?
Yes.
So then I have a set of beliefs about the testing instrument that I am using. But one of the things that so like, for example, there was a lot of assumptions when this test was designed also, that the testing instrument is very good. So in fact, the National Talent Search Exam is one of the first tests in India to use the multiple choice format. And it was and that model of testing was chosen because it was thought that there would be less bias. So in many ways, like there were a lot of psychometrics which went into the calculation of what questions should be used, all of that. But one thing that the planners missed out was when they kept the exam at grade 12, right? One thing that they're assuming is that all children who go through kindergarten are progressing till class 12 without failing. But in the Indian context, because of tremendous poverty, about 50% of the children who enroll in class 1 only make it to class 5. At class 5, again, there is a tremendous amount of dropout to class 8. Once you come to class 8, a girl is 13 years old. Very often in rural parts of India, there is a lot of concern that you must educate a girl in such a way that she can be married off well, right? And therefore, and some subjects are considered better for girls, like say home sciences or art subjects or social sciences. And so girls who are very bright, especially in many parts of Indian society, after grade 8, they have to go to they have to change their school. They have to go to high school. When they go to high school, very often girls' schools do not have STEM subjects. So now you look at that is extremely interesting, no? One reason that like girls are performing badly is that many girls are, they don't, in their schools they don't have science subjects, so they cannot write this exam. So this is the way in which society keeps excluding a lot of people, and therefore there are definitely a lot of tests that we can use, but every time you are also objectively looking at the test, it's also important to look at who is writing the test and what are the reasons for their success and failure. Because if we don't do that, then our responses will be having a lot of bias. For example, in the US context, many people thought that people who were white tended to perform better than people who are Black or Asians or Latin Americans. So race, so these neutral objective tests very often were used to justify a lot of these other social inequalities. Now, it's not, I would recommend a book by this person called Stephen Gould. It's called The Mismeasure of Man. It's an interesting book. Maybe you may not accept all his arguments, but it's important to look at the tools that we are using. It's not a direct answer to your question, but from my area of research, this is the answer I can give you.
Okay, thank you. And can you just put the name of the book in the chat?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Thank you. I think your research is so meaningful for the developing area and for girls. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just
Thank
in the chat. I'm just.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And the remaining student, Kevin, can you considering about your question or comment about it? File the Rachel inputting the book name, book title. Yes, Measures of Man by Stephen Gould. Good. Yes, thank you. Kevin, can you hear? Can you hear me, Kevin? No. No response. Yeah, sorry. Just. So finally, the final comment from the Professor Kamata, please. Yes, please. Some conclusion comment.
Conclusion comment. So thank you for your very nice talk. So the pronunciation is Raphael Phillips.
Rachel.
Rachel.
Yes. Yes.
Rachel. Sorry. So the very interesting talk about the talent. So
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much.
So we are not familiar with, of course, this area, but so very impressive. So the talented is, of course, gifted student. There are many in all countries, and of course, I heard the very famous professor in math, so the Terence Tao he is now the professor in UCLA mathematics, but he became the professor at the 23 years old. To become became the professor in UCLA. So very talented, of course, but probably his parents have several the educational system for so that's a very difficult thing, but the education system, I guess, I couldn't conclude this
good.
topic, but thank you very much for the good question about the talent. So that's all.
Thank you.
My comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, today's talk is mainly about the talent. So therefore, it is a very rare case about the we are schools topic about the talent and education. Yes, but
actually, I would have made the presentation differently. But if I had known there was so much interest in talent, I could have talked about that research more properly.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the tomorrow's announcement. Tomorrow is also the same time. Rachel will introduce this joint research project is Waseda University and IIT Jodhpur. Yes, the Indian team has 5 major members. I don't remember exactly, but the various fields. Not only the engineering, also in the engineering field, the various fields, the researcher is participating in this Indian group. So therefore, tomorrow we can find what have been done and what is planning to do this joint project is introduced by the Rachel. So therefore, please join again on tomorrow. Yes. Thank you for today. Thank you for the Rachel, the good talking, and the good audience to make the good discussion via the Q&A sessions. Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, and so close this session. Thank you. See you.
See you tomorrow.
See you.